the perfect person, which I'm glad we were able to get him, was Glenn, because he's been with the company. Obviously, he's the CEO. He brought me on board, and he and I have had many discussions, and obviously he can talk about it, where it's been over the last couple of years and to where we're at now.
Yeah, Glenn, welcome aboard the show. Thanks for jumping on board.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Perfect is maybe a stretch. I'll try my best, Bill. Thank you.
Well, so what we got here is like a specialized polyurethane material for people who are trying to understand what this material is. And from what I'm seeing here, Glenn, this kind of absorbs the energy and kind of dissipates it differently to not, I would assume, not reach the head or the brain area to kind of take the impact away from those hits.
Right. The purpose of the technology, first and foremost, is to mitigate and reduce force from ever reaching the hard shell of the helmet in the first place. Once hard shell hits hard shell, or hard shell of the helmet hits, whether it's the ground or another helmet, the reality is the majority of the force is impacts a player's head and the brain. The helmet does a terrific job of reducing the risk of skull fractures and other severe related brain injuries. But from a concussive and a head trauma standpoint, the reality is it can do very little. So our solution is to say, hey, the helmets are terrific technologies, and they do a terrific job. But if we can enhance that existing helmet technology with an outer soft shell cover that complements the helmet, that mimics, it looks identical, but acts in essence as an airbag that's function, and we call it now a force management system. It has a proprietary chemical formulation that dissipates and absorbs force from the impact, preventing it from ever reaching the hard shell. That's one feature.
How much, there was an independent lab testing at Penn State that Billy brought up to us. How much has that kind of helped make this something that is now being widespread across at least collegiate football?
Well, as maybe Bill has mentioned, we have been participated in a study with the Penn State Medical Research Team, and the ProTech technology has been part of this for 2 years. And it's important to know that it's an independent study. So our responsibility was to deliver the product, and then, as they said, get out of the way, and we'll let you know how it goes in a couple of years. And so, it's important for us to, and we've been doing this for a long time, is vetting ourselves. If we're going to go out there and make some statements, we're trying to do the right thing for the good of the game. We want to know everything that's good and maybe not so good, right? So, and we're willing to go out there and be scrutinized independently. So this has been in play with Penn State for 2 years, and we're just getting the results of this research, and the findings are very good. And they've been tracking the impact forces over 3 years, and they did a baseline of how the helmets themselves are performed, and then they've incorporated the ProTech technology, and then what they've seen basically over a 2-year period, and they categorized them in force impacts that were measured between 25 and 80 Gs, which they would call, subconcussive impacts, which we are very concerned about the accumulation and the repetitiveness of those impacts, and then impacts of 80 Gs and higher. We reduced those impacts littleness from 50% from 25 to 80 Gs and 72% of 80 Gs and above. So there was a significant reduction in force that was then therefore impacting a player's head and brain.
And, hey, Glenn, this is Bill, and these guys have been asking a lot of questions and have had some great perspective. And I think one of the things that we talked about with the Penn State study and this new product, and they kept talking about, everybody is familiar with Mark Kelso, and I was explaining to them how far we've come from that product to here now. What are, besides the Penn State study, what are some of the, I guess you could say the major differences from people out there that have that in their mind to this current product? Because I know the way these guys have been thinking, but I wanted to get your thoughts.
Well, I kiddingly say that way back then, when it was in its early phases, when Mark used it, I compare it to the early stages of the cell phone. It was like a walkie-talkie, the big burly thing. And now we'd like to think we're at the iPhone 8 or 9, wherever we're at there with the iPhones. And so that technology, what was good about that has been refined. The formulation continues to be vetted and improved to maximize absorption and dissipation. The other features of that was really didn't cover the whole helmet. This now covers the complete helmet. And so that you will have these safety benefits all over the place. Whereas you'll know that, I don't know, some research has shown that up to 50, maybe more than 50% of concussions are through impacts on the side of the helmet, not just in the front of the helmet, but the side and then a high percentage in the back of the helmet. Well, our strongest readings and performance are on the side and the back, all over the helmet. So that's a huge improvement. The other benefit, and what we've improved the technology is as I was mentioning, is the redirection technology, where on impacts that allows the movement of the Protect along the helmet. That movement will then permit the impact from the other helmet to actually proceed in the direction away from the helmet. So therefore, we're redirecting force away from the impact in the first place. The last feature is we continue to refine the slippery finish, right? We want to maximize the coefficient of friction, make that darn thing as slippery as possible. So it is very slippery. That also provides the benefit of redirecting helmet collisions away from that impact. This is very important. The last thing that we've continued to improve and maximize is the acceleration. As we can slow acceleration, slowing down that acceleration therefore slows down the force. We slow down the force, there's less trauma to the head. So there's been just huge gains over time. We've spent years and time and obviously a lot of dollars refining the technology. We've been methodical and responsible over the last 3 to 4 years, where we've been on the field quietly with a number of college teams, vetting the product, getting feedback, refining everything from the technology to the ease of use. And in each year, based on word of mouth and performance, we've been growing. So we started with Holy Cross University 3 years ago. They're terrific partners. They now mandate that technology team-wide. Player goes on the field practice, you have to be wearing it. North Carolina State now is the same thing. Coach won't let the player on the field unless he's wearing the Protect technology. So it's very exciting that we continue to grow and advance the technology. We'll be on the field this year. At this point, we're actually still taking orders with approximately 250 teams from the youth level, high school, on to the major Division I university. Obviously including Penn State University, to the likes of North Carolina State, Holy Cross, Arkansas, Houston, Temple, Pennsylvania, right up the street from us. Some really high-profile universities and institutions around the country. So we're very excited. And it's clearly what we're seeing is the difference is that we're able to translate the performance as we measure the force reduction. You're seeing a correlation from that force reduction to less head trauma-related injuries that are being tracked by the teams.
One question that I had and we were kind of talking about was, we were joking about the piece that Mark Kelso from the Bills used to wear, I guess, back in the early 90s. And I assume that he wore that because it was safer for him who had concussion problems. But the big knock on that was it wasn't aesthetically pleasing. Was that something that was very important to the players, that I don't want to look crazy even if it was safer for me?
Well, the design factor, the cool factor is never going to go away, and it's clearly is a factor. So we've spent years refining the design to mimic the look of a helmet to the point where you can't notice the difference of a person who's wearing a Protect versus somebody who's not. I think a terrific compliment we got is that we were at the spring practice up at Holy Cross, I think 2 seasons ago. We were talking to the head coach, and the head coach said to myself and our team, he said, kiddingly, he said, I was having a bad day. not in a good mood. And I was out in the field, and I started yelling at the equipment manager and trainers. I said, how come our guys aren't wearing the Protex? You know, and they looked at me and they said, Coach, they are wearing the Protex. So he said, I couldn't tell the difference. So we've made dramatic improvement in the design. We can customize colors to brand to any schools. So we have 20, 25 standard colors. We customize to meet, you know, whatever the school color is. They all accept decals. So we really made terrific improvements in the design and cool factor, which is very important, right? So if we can marry safety and improve safety and still have a product that the players will say, hey, this is pretty cool, I like wearing it, it's a win-win.
It's amazing, though, that the players are willing to be less safe if they look better.
If they have,
That's amazing.
And you know, in the past, change for everybody, and we've seen that firsthand. Change is hard. Human nature, change is hard, and we resist. And we've experienced that firsthand. But you know, we have to be the parent. We have to be the adult and say, listen, this is really important. You need to stick with this. And when in the early phases of when the product was on the field, there was some resistance because of the aesthetic look, or hey, it just felt a little different. But we, you know, the training staff, the coaching staff said, listen, we want you to stick with it and you know, give it a chance. And what we found after 2 or 3 weeks of use, players, especially at all colleges, players are coming into the training staff and volunteering information that was so important. And the information was that they had realized that over the course of time that they were experiencing less headaches. You know, as a football player, you always have bad headaches, and it's obvious, right? You're hitting your head; it's not necessarily a good thing. And they felt better. They didn't have the migraine headaches. They said at nighttime when they were studying, they can concentrate on the schoolwork. When they were in practice, their focus was better. And once they realized that, there was an immediate acceptance. So to me, that seems to be the trigger time, and then the player. And obviously, when you have a healthier player, then the player buys in over the course of time, and that's what we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years.
Good. I think that. Yeah,
Glenn,
I just showed these guys the helmet, Glenn, and I just took one of the Protex off, and they just saw how quick I put it on and took it off. And
it's absolutely amazing.
It's unbelievable. So Ryan has a thought to that.
No, I mean, I'm poking it, and it's so absorbent and it's so light. You can't even really, like, I put it on myself, and I can't even tell the difference whether it's on or it's not on. And I just have a couple questions out of curiosity because it's an accessory to a helmet. I mean, is there any helmets right now that it can't go on? And then the second part is, like, in my mind, I don't see any reason why a football department or a coach or an AD or whoever is actually making that decision, like, okay, we're going to use these. Why wouldn't they use these? And can you project, like, in 5 years that the majority of teams that we're either watching in person or on TV are going to have this in some form?
Well, you know, our projections are ambitious. We obviously we believe in what we're doing, and the marketplace is now beginning to join that process and that belief. So we say the same thing, and in the end, you go, well, why wouldn't you do this? And if the only reason is just is education and going through your due diligence process, which to me is responsible to make sure what you're doing is the right thing. And then you try. And once you ignite that process, once you're into the process, you're off and running. We've seen that with every team. So the nice thing about it is that if a player is particularly fond of their helmet, that does a great job. You know, let's say Red Speed. It's a terrific helmet, and I'm comfortable in it. I feel good in it. You know, I don't necessarily want a whole new helmet. So it's a win-win. All you do is add technology to it. He keeps the same level of comfort. He's used to it, and we improve safety. So our product right now is designed for every Riddell and Schutt model that exists. Well, so is new battery products for that as well. So, and we will expand to every potential helmet. The majority of the marketplace are Riddell and Schutt models. So we have a product for every helmet in the marketplace.
It's interesting, Glenn. Right now, I'm getting a lot of texts on my phone from the people that we met with yesterday with Coach Rich Hans and the people down in Wildwood, and they're all basically saying what you're saying. So for the people listening out there to what Ryan just talked about, a lot of the youth programs, once they see this product, they are obviously very interested. And as you said, Glenn, some of the teams are mandating it. Well, Rich Hans is basically saying the same thing in the text message, that, he was blown away by the technology and how this is so important for the young kids out there. And I think that's where we're seeing a lot of the great feedback. And not only that, but then when you get the college programs behind it, they're become believers. And once you get past that part about the whole Kelso thing and you actually get it in your hand, like these guys were saying, it's got to be heavy. But Ryan, didn't you think, you can't believe how light it is?
No, you can't even. I mean, it's barely.
Well, I think this says a lot
in
too.
my hands.
This says a lot here. LSU, Arkansas, Wisconsin, Rutgers, among 35 Division I. That's some big boys right there.
Yes,
it is.
So if they're willing to wear it, I can't imagine that that the youth levels would not jump on board, and because there's a lot of parents who won't let their kids play because of this stuff.
That's the key. Yep.
No, so speaking as a parent, our focus, Bill's probably mentioned that, is really targeting the high school and the youth league levels, and that's where our fan base is, and that's where these young kids are. That's where parents need a peace of mind. And as we know, let me be very clear, it's a great game, right? It's a terrific game. Builds teamwork, sportsmanship, character, overcoming adversity, all those unique things. But by God, we got to do everything we can to make it as safe as possible. This product is performing. It is helping our kids enjoy the game. It's providing peace of mind to our parents. It's the type of thing we need to be doing. So we're very excited about it. We're in discussions, 10 to 12 youth leagues right now for an entire youth league initiative would be distributed to every player in the youth league. We will be on numerous youth league organizations and teams this year. So the parents are getting it, the coaches, the league leadership, everybody's getting it. We're making a difference, and it's very exciting.
And for those of you listening out there, obviously this is Glenn Tilley, the CEO of Defend Your Head. Go on to the website, www.defendyourhead.com. Obviously, you can Google the ProTech, Protech. You can see the teams that are wearing it. Obviously, we're going to put something up at 973.com too as well. So you'll see it on our websites, and we'll Google and we'll send out a lot of the pictures here. Any other questions, Mike? Yeah, for Glenn?
No, I think it's great, and having the helmet in here really was a great piece to add, because we got a chance to really see it, because it was exactly what we were discussing yesterday, and we had callers calling in talking about different helmet safeties and things like that, and a lot of these rules, Glenn, that have been put into the game are safety related. Now, I can't imagine that you typically don't see them go backwards and say, okay, the helmet's safer, so we're going to let you hit more. But it might at least allow them to hit an apex at some point to say, all right, we don't have to keep putting rules in if these things do their job. Right. And it's like to make the game safe as possible and to do the right thing. It's a combination of rule enhancements, let's say, not just changes, but enhancements, practice methodology, which we're seeing, and an improvement in safety technology. So if you can combine all three, you're creating a safer environment. But let me say that even with the changes of practice methodology and some of the rule changes, or I call them enhancements, there have been studies done in recent years by some leading college institutions that still share significant data that says even with these changes, I'll give you an example. In one major Division I university over a 2-year period, it was still tracking that on average, O&D linemen were experiencing upwards of 2,000 head impacts over the course of the season. That's significant. Another major university, in fact, the University of Michigan, did a study over a 4-year time period with some high schools out in that area, measuring impacts. And this is at the high school level. On average, the O&D linemen throughout the season, each lineman still received up 2,235 impacts. Running backs and linebackers were 1,140 impacts over the course of the season. We're still receiving 600 impacts per season.
So the reality is, whether you're going to fall and hit your head on the ground, you're going to fall and hit your head on a shoulder pad or in the chest. Those are still impacts. It doesn't have to be helmet to helmet. So the reality is, just like I kiddingly say, my son played high school football, and his trainer used to worry about him when he wasn't on a football field because he got 2 concussions by slipping and falling and hitting his head on a slippery pavement during the wintertime. So, when you're active, your head is going to get hit. You can't prevent it. Even when you do everything you can to limit it, you're still going to have head impacts.
Really good stuff. Glenn Tilley, he's the CEO of Defend Your Head. So if there's high school football coaches, junior football league coaches listening out there, check that out and potentially think about your team getting a part of this. I got it in front of me here, guys. It's pretty cool. And hopefully we see a lot of these entering into all leagues, including the National Football League. Glenn, we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and all my best.